I like to kind of parachute the audience into the story that's already going 60 miles an hour.
The properties of people and the properties of character have almost nothing to do with each other.
You can write heroes and you can write villains, but there's no such thing as an interesting character who doesn't have a conscience.
It isn't, and I don't think it should be, journalism. I don't think what you want from art is a Wikipedia page shot nicely. It ought to be subjective and not objective.
I love compressing time and space. I love that claustrophobic, almost play-like feeling.
In the process of writing the first draft, by the time you get to the end, you've sort of discovered what the movie is about. Go back to the beginning of the script, start writing it over again, peel away the things that don't have anything to do with your story, get it down to its fighting weight.
Well, I think anyone who doesn't respect the audience is making a big mistake. I don't think that the people who make movies are any smarter than the people who watch movies. If you treat them like they're dumb, they're not going to like you very much.
J.D. May asks, what are your best tips for writing villain characters? Okay, that's a great question. And my best tip is that you, J.D., cannot think of them as a villain. You can't judge the character. You, the writer, you can't judge the character. You have to be able to empathize with that character. Find something about that character that is like you too. And then you have to write that character like they're making their case to God why they should be allowed into heaven. I don't know if you've ever seen, the first movie I wrote was based on the first play that I wrote, A Few Good Men, and you probably know You Can't Handle the Truth. That whole You Can't Handle the Truth scene from Nicholson in the courtroom, that is Nicholson's character making his case to God why he should be allowed into heaven, even though he has committed manslaughter, okay? Even though he's responsible for the death of a Marine private, he's defending it, why it was actually a good thing to do. So, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, or Nicholson and A Few Good Men, or anybody else, the audience can think of them as a villain, but not you.
I do think of a dialogue in musical term. It is music. It's not, that isn't a metaphor. Mm-hmm. Anytime that you're speaking out loud for the sake of performance, those words, what you're saying, have all of the properties of music.
Rhythm, beats, rests.
Exactly right. And so there are musical rules that apply. If you're in 4/4 time, there have to be 4 beats in a measure. There can't be 3. There can't be 5.
You put time signatures on your dialogue?
I do not put them there, but they are there, which is why the actor will know that if he or she has dropped a word from a line or substituted a 2-syllable word with a 1-syllable word, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound as good. The joke doesn't work. The snappy comeback isn't as snappy. It is musical. I don't put time signatures in there, but what I do is script every sound that's made. All the verbal hiccups, all the ums and ahs happen. Jessica has a line in the movie. Jessica Chastain, who plays the lead, plays Molly. She has a line in the movie, which is, the line is I'm a brat, or I was a brat. But the line actually is, I was a brat. And it's written M, I was a brat. And the first time we did it, I said to her, Jessica, there are 3 more M's, and you got to do all the M's. It came from a love for dialogue. It came from my parents taking me to see plays that I was too young to understand, like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf when I was 9 years old. Ooh. I had no idea what was going on up there, but I really loved the sound of dialogue, and it sounded like music to me, and I wanted to imitate that sound.
Well, I think anyone who doesn't respect the audience is making a big mistake. Lucy's right when she says... she's arguing with she's arguing with Jess Oppenheimer, Tony Hale, about a moment in a scene. And Jess says, you think we're saying Ricky is stupid? And she says, I think we're saying the audience is, and that's something for which they will not soon forgive you. And I couldn't agree with her more. If you include the audience, if they're not just spectators, if they're part of this event. If you can make them a participant, I like to start. I like to kind of parachute the audience into the story that's already going 60 miles an hour. If you can make them just sit forward a little bit to try to catch up to where we are, because we're running out ahead of them. That excitement will be part of their experience. If you treat them like they're dumb, they're not going to like you very much. They're not going to like the story they're telling. And frankly, I don't think that the people who make movies are any smarter than the people who watch movies.
Here's what's key in creating drama: intention and obstacle. That's what you've got to cling to. Somebody wants something standing in their way of getting it. They want the money. They want the girl. They want to get to Philadelphia. They want to win the big game. They want to save someone's life. If somebody wants something formidable is standing in the way of getting it. The tactics that your protagonist uses to try to overcome that obstacle or those series of obstacles, that is what's going to create your character. Because you're not going to tell us who this character is. You're going to show us what this character wants. It doesn't matter if they succeed or fail in their quest. It matters to you. It doesn't matter to storytelling. It's just as good a story if they fail as if they succeed. What matters is that the intention be important to them, and that we understand why it's important to them. And the obstacles have to be real. Tension and obstacle.
I think one of the really the smart things, I think, not that I'm smart, but like the way that you took these real, true events and just happened to have them all happen over 1 week.
I love compressing time and space. I love that claustrophobic, almost play-like feeling. So there were these three things that happened, these three big events in their life. The accusation that Lucy was a communist, the fact that Lucy was pregnant at a time when a woman could not possibly be pregnant on television, and the third was Desi showing up on the cover of Confidential magazine, a gossip rag, with another woman, and the headline, Desi's Wild Night Out. And I thought, well, I'm not perverting history or defaming these people if I take those three events and make them happen during 1 week, compressed time, and have the whole thing take place during one production week of I Love Lucy, Monday table read to Friday audience taping. So that's what I did. Dramatists get to do that.
The properties of people and the properties of character have almost nothing to do with each other. They really don't. I know it seems like they do because we look alike, characters and people. But people don't speak in dialogue. Their lives don't unfold in a series of scenes that form a narrative arc. The rules of drama are really very much separate from what we know, like I said, the properties of life. With Steve Jobs, the thing that has surprised me is how surprised some people have been that it's not a literal biopic, that it's not what we're used to, a cradle-to-grave story where you land on the greatest hits of the character along the way. I can tell you that I didn't distort, pervert, or invent any facts about Steve Jobs for this movie at all, except one, which is that Steve did not have confrontations with the same 5 people 40 minutes before every product launch that he did. That's plainly a writer's construct. Just like if I wanted to write a movie about you, an interesting way to do it might be to have the whole thing set right here, right at this round table where other conversations can be had.
Even if it's a cradle-to-grave biography.
Yes,
never the whole thing.
Of course, it's never the whole thing, and moreover, it isn't, and I don't think it should be journalism. I don't think what you want from art is a Wikipedia page shot nicely. It ought to be subjective and not objective. Frequently, if I'm really stuck, I'll go out into a public place, a diner, a bus stop, any place where you might overhear a conversation, and hope that I can land in the middle of a conversation that will get me thinking, what in the world was the beginning of this conversation? And I'll try to write that. And so I was in a diner once and just overheard somebody, they were really frustrated, saying, honestly, how many people can you think of named Gordon? And I thought, let me get out of here. I'm going to write the rest of this scene. And I'm going to write the beginning of this scene. I was in Jackson, Mississippi, and passed by a park bench, and two men were sitting there, and one of them said, "Who that there going to get the jump on Jesus?" And again, I thought, that's what I'm talking about. He wrote the best line of the scene. Now let me just write the rest of it.
Now, Aaron, 2020 has been one for the books. I'm curious, does watching a year like this play out make you want to write about it? And what would the finale look like? Please tell me it won't be Revenge of the Murder Hornets.
It wouldn't be if I wrote it, I think. But listen, a lot will be written about these last few years by screenwriters and by playwrights. But my prediction is that you'll never see Donald Trump as an on-screen character, that he'll always be off-screen, that you'll see him on televisions and news footage, because he's simply implausible as a character. And you can write heroes and you can write villains, but there's no such thing as an interesting character who doesn't have a conscience.
You've written a scene well, and you have, if there are any pool players in here, you'll know what I mean by giving yourself a leave, which is to say you've written a scene well, and you've left off at a place where you can go to bed knowing what you're doing when you get up tomorrow morning. That you're not going to get up tomorrow morning climbing the walls because you don't have an idea. That you know just what you're going to do. You've given yourself a leave.
All right, Holly Jack. People who write stuff. How do you approach second drafts? Blank page and start again? Amendments to what you've already got? Any thoughts, tips would be appreciated. Yeah, great. Second drafts are really important. A friend of mine once said about me that I don't write scripts, I rewrite scripts. And here's what he meant. In the process of writing the first draft, by the time you get to the end, you've sort of discovered what the movie is about. Because it may not end up that first draft being about what you thought it was going to be about when you started writing it. You plotted a course to go due north, but as you were going, you started going a little bit east and then a little bit more east, and when you end up, you're going northeast. So you figured out what the script is about. It's probably fat. It's probably long. Go back to the beginning of the script. Start writing it over again. Peel away the things that don't have anything to do with your story. Hang a lantern on the things that you need to bring into relief in the story. You're going to discover that a problem that you have in the third act isn't really in the third act. It's because you didn't set it up properly in the first. So, second drafts, I say, retype the whole thing. Sharpen up that joke that's kind of clunky. Sharpen up that dialogue that's kind of clunky. Get it down to its fighting weight. That's what I do anyway.
I take anywhere between 6 to 8 showers a day. Because I'm not
You're not exaggerating.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm not a germaphobe. It has nothing to do with germs. It's all about a fresh start. Okay? I was writing, it was not going well. I'm writing badly. Start again. Take a shower, put on different clothes, and you'll feel refreshed and start again. Writing is really hard for me. I haven't had an easy one. This one, Steve Jobs, what was hard was that I knew what I didn't want to do, which was write a biopic, a traditional biopic, a cradle-to-grave story, that I wanted to do something else. And what that turned out to be was frankly, a lot of dialogue, which if you are a little familiar with my work, it's not that surprising. When I grew up in my family, at my family's dinner table, anybody who used one word when they could have used 10 just wasn't trying hard enough.
I see. People are talking over each other.
Yeah, and when I really said, everybody in my family is smarter than I am. All of my friends are smarter than I am. All my friends growing up were smarter than I was. And I really started to enjoy the sound of smart people arguing with each other, and I wanted to imitate that sound.
Caitlin Greenridge says, if you are writing a marginalized character whose identity you do not share, can you imagine your way into that character through their joy and not their imagined trauma? Yes, you can. Empathy, right? Same blood that goes through your body goes through that person. We all have, as humans, the power to empathize with each other, to understand each other's lives, and to put any character we want into a dramatic situation, because the most important thing in your story isn't going to be someone's sexual orientation, their skin color, their religion, whether they are able-bodied or disabled. The most important thing in your story is going to be intention and obstacle. What does this character want, and what's standing in the way of getting it? And I assume that because you're interested in telling this story, you are interested in what the character wants and what's standing in their way of getting it, or you think it's a great comic premise with which you can use your sense of humor, or you think it's a great premise with which to tell a murder mystery or a romantic comedy or anything like that. But I really think it's important that writers not start to get cautious because they're scared of being offensive. Stereotypes should be avoided, whether it's, as you say, someone from a diverse population or someone who looks exactly like you. You want to avoid all kinds of stereotypes, not just because of racial or ethnic sensitivity. Stereotypes are just bad in writing.
You mentioned the rules. There are rules. They were written over 2,000 years ago by Aristotle in a short book called The Poetics. The rules of drama are older than Christianity. And a young writer would do well to learn those rules.
When people are talking about something, it isn't so much their position that I'm trying to imitate as the way they're presenting it. I'm just trying to phonetically recreate the sound of political sophistication and knowing what you're talking about. And oftentimes in things that I've written, whether it's A Few Good Men or I wrote a movie called Malice, or The American President, or Sports Night, or The West Wing, there'll be a quick passage that'll go by, and somebody, the studio, a producer, someone will say, gee, no one's going to know what these two people are talking about. I'll say, it's actually not important that they do. What's important is that the audience say, wow, these guys really know what they're talking about. That's interesting. And that's what I try to do.
I'm a great audience member. When I come into a movie theater, when I come into a theater to see a play, when I turn on the television set, I'm the best audience member you could ask for. You can show me a magic trick 50 times, and I'll still be amazed by it. But what I do, and what I would recommend to you, were talking about young writers before, is be a student as well. Have a good time watching the movie the first time, or the second time, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, but at some point, be a diagnostician. If you don't like the movie, if the movie isn't working, don't just shrug it off and say, well, these guys, they made a junky movie. Figure out why. What went wrong in there. So if you see something, you don't like it, it's not working, figure out why. If you see something and you do like it and it's working, figure out why. Figure out how the magic trick is done, to go back to that metaphor, and then go back to enjoying the magic trick.
You write some just incredible dialogue. What is your secret so I can let other writers know and make other people's scripts better?
Well, thank you. I would tell those writers to write in their voice, to not try to write the way someone else writes. There's nothing wrong with, I try to let sort of David Mamet get into my bloodstream. I try to let Tom Stoppard get into my bloodstream. Any number of writers who I revere. But I can tell you that when I'm writing, I am talking out loud. I'm playing all the parts in my head. And one of the things I think that helps with is you are less likely to write a line of dialogue that's unspeakable. I love you, my dear, like the stars love once you have to say it out loud, you'll get the message that you can't ask an actor to try to, casualize that line.
We're going to talk about character and hopefully mostly how Aaron develops character So I'm just going to do, the first question is just walk me through, pick a character. Do you write like a short story about them? Do you write prose about them before you do dialogue? Do they come from real people? How does a character actually come about in your mind?
I don't do those things that you just mentioned. Other people do, and it's important to note that there is no one way to do it. Everybody does it differently. For me, rather than kind of tell the audience who a character is, I like to show the audience what a character wants. And it all boils down to intention and obstacle. Somebody wants something standing in their way of getting it. They want the girl, they want the money, they want to get to Philadelphia. It doesn't matter, but they have to want it bad. If they can need it, that's even better. Something formidable is standing in their way, and the tactics that character uses to overcome the obstacle is going to define who the character is. It's like having a Christmas tree and then hanging ornaments on it.
Well, frankly, the best career advice I've ever gotten was probably, for God's sake, don't try to be a professional writer. You'll starve to death. I couldn't follow that advice because I so badly wanted to be a professional writer. But it was practice. That writing is like playing the violin. It takes practice. You get better as you get older, and you just don't get beaten down by rejection.